Welcome to Paranormal Nightshift, your home for everything that goes bump in the dark. If you love eerie encounters, chilling confessions, and real fan-submitted paranormal stories, you're in the right place. Tonight, we have a story that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the unseen. It comes from Kyle, and it's called The Apartment in Tokyo. But be warned, sometimes the things lurking in the shadows aren't just tricks of the eye. Sometimes they're watching, waiting, and some places don't want to let you go. But before we dive in, if you love supernatural mysteries, grab your free copy of The Birth of Dimensional Desperado, the first ebook in the Dimensional Desperado series, at paranormalnightshift.com. It's packed with time travel, ghostly encounters, and a cowboy who takes on the paranormal in ways you've never seen before. Get yours now at paranormalnightshift.com. Now, let's step inside Kyle's apartment in Tokyo. Just don't be surprised if something follows you home. I never considered myself someone who believed in ghosts or the supernatural. I've always been a pretty logical person, someone who looks for a reasonable explanation first before jumping to conclusions. But moving to Tokyo changed that for me in ways I never expected. Everything seemed perfectly fine when my friend and I first moved into our new apartment. It was a cozy place, a little on the older side, but charming. Nestled in a quiet neighborhood, it had everything we wanted. Proximity to the train station, a decent-sized kitchen, and most importantly, within our budget. For the first few weeks, life went on as usual. We settled in, got used to the rhythms of the neighborhood, and went about our routines. But then things started to change. Little things at first, things I brushed off as quirks of an old building. It all began with the smoke alarm. Almost every night, without fail, at precisely 4 a.m., the smoke alarm would blare through the apartment, jarring us out of our sleep. And it wasn't just the sound, it was the smell, that thick, unmistakable scent of burnt wood. The first time it happened, I shot out of bed, heart pounding, convinced that the apartment was on fire. I frantically searched every corner, the kitchen, the bathroom, even the closets. But there was nothing. No smoke, no sign of fire, just the lingering, acrid smell hanging in the air. I chalked it to an old battery and replaced it the next day. Problem solved, or so I thought. But 2 nights later, at precisely 4 a.m., the alarm went off again. This time, the smell of burnt wood was more pungent and oppressive. I rechecked everything, feeling ridiculous. But once again, nothing. This became our new regular. Every few days, like clockwork, the alarm would sound at 4 a.m., and that eerie, smoky smell would fill the apartment. I even had an electrician check the wiring. Nothing was wrong. Eventually, I stopped trying to figure it out and got used to waking up at the same ungodly hour, silencing the alarm and trying to go back to sleep. Then the shadows started. I'd be sitting in the lounge room, buried in my work, or just relaxing when I'd catch something, a black blur moving just out of the corner of my eye. It was too quick to focus on, and whenever I turned my head to look, it was gone. At first, I told myself I was imagining things, that it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. But the more it happened, the harder it became to ignore. Some days it was a black shadow, fleeting and fast. Other days it was white, almost like a flicker of light darting past the doorframe. It never made a sound, but I could feel it, this strange presence that seemed to be lurking just outside my line of sight. I tried to dismiss it and focus on my studies, but over time, the atmosphere in the apartment began to change. The air felt heavier, like something unseen was pressing down on me, and coming home after work started to feel like stepping into a space that wasn't entirely mine anymore. I couldn't explain it, but a nasty, oppressive energy was hanging in the air, making me feel anxious and uneasy. I found myself staying out later than usual, lingering in cafes, or taking the long way home to avoid stepping inside. It reached the point where I could barely sleep, constantly on edge, waiting for the next shadow to flit past, or for the smell of burnt wood to seep into the room again. One night, I decided enough was enough. I'm not religious, but my friend had given me a Bible a while back, and at that moment, I figured I had nothing to lose. I wasn't sure what I was dealing with, but I knew I wanted it gone. I sat down, took a deep breath, and devised a plan. I would confront whatever it was, head on. I grabbed a handful of toothpicks from the kitchen and carefully fashioned them into small crosses, placing them in a pile on the coffee table. Then, I picked up the Bible, flipped it open to a random page, and read aloud. With the Bible in one hand and a handful of toothpick crosses in the other, I began walking from room to room. I started in the bedroom, reading each verse out loud in a steady voice, not sure what I expected to happen. I placed a small cross on the windowsill, another near the bed, and one in the closet. Then I moved on to the lounge, the bathroom, the kitchen. Every corner of that apartment got a dose of whatever strength I could muster. At first, nothing felt different, but as I continued, reading passage after passage, something strange happened. The air shifted. That awful heaviness I'd been feeling for weeks began to lift. The apartment was breathing again, like whatever lurked in the corners didn't like what I was doing. I felt something retreating, pulling away as I pressed on, scattering the toothpick crosses strategically. When I finished, I stood in the lounge room, sweaty and out of breath, but strangely lighter. That night, I slept like a baby. The 4 a.m. alarm never went off again. The smoky smell never returned. The shadows that once lurked in the periphery of my vision were gone. It was as if the apartment had been wiped clean, the oppressive energy replaced by something brighter, calmer, peaceful. I tried looking up the apartment's history, scouring online forums and local archives, hoping to find some mention of a fire or a tragic incident. But there was nothing. No record of anything that could explain what we experienced. We moved out not long after that, and I'll be honest, leaving that place behind was a relief. I never told the new tenants what happened. I figured they'd either think I was crazy or they'd find out on their own. Since then, we've lived in a few different places around Tokyo, and thankfully we've had no other problems. But every now and then, when I wake up in the middle of the night for no reason, I can't help but wonder, what if something followed us? I still keep that Bible my friend gave me, just in case. And toothpicks? Well, let's just say I always have a few extra lying around now. You never know when you might need them. With that being said, Kyle, thank you so much for sharing your story. Now, if you have a story of your own that you'd like to submit, you can do so right here on Paranormal Nightshift. We'd love to hear it. And before we wrap things up, if you enjoy the show and want to support what we do, consider joining us over on Patreon. You'll get an ad-free experience, early access to new episodes a week before everyone else, and exclusive access to all future journeys in the Dimensional Desperado ebook series. If Patreon isn't your thing, no worries. You can still support us by subscribing to the podcast on Spotify and YouTube. And while you're there, drop a comment to let us know what you thought about this episode. We love hearing from you. And don't forget, You can grab a free copy of the first ebook in the Dimensional Desperado series, The Birth of Dimensional Desperado, right now at paranormalnightshift.com. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and keep your eyes on the shadows.